Okay. Live on Node Foundation LTS working group meeting on the 5th of October 2015. So we were just quickly discussing NPM changes and looking at version 3 versus 2. So the current status of that was we're going into version 4 LTS with NPM version 2 and version 5 of Node with I don't believe there's any objections to putting version 3 of NPM into version 5 of Node. That is likely to be released within the next 2 to 4 weeks, depending on V8. So I think that means we just need to notify Rebecca that she can get a pull request into master for NPM version 3.
Yeah. Yep.
Sounds good to me.
So I wanted to start on. Actually, there's a minutes document here, isn't there? Well, I should be writing stuff.
Keeping records is, that's old school.
It's optional. Okay. Let me just jot down NPM version 3. Version 2. And version 3. So. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is release timing. So we've just had 4.1.2 come out, and we have a backlog of some Semver minor changes. Let me just quickly list them. Right, so the changes. James, you've got the check is HTTP token. The process versions.icu property.
Isn't check is HTTP token a Semver major, or did we leave that behind an option?
Right. No, yeah, you're right. It's a Semver major. That's not going on. I'm reading this wrong. So the process versions ICU include file name. Sorry.
What I was going to do there for that one was put it behind a flag, so it's enabled or it's disabled by default, and put it a flag. But if that does not get in, I'm not too worried.
Okay.
Well, I think you have like a week to get stuff in. So.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I'm actually going to get to it. So.
Yeah, given the discussion that's going to happen on that one, I'm not sure that we'd have enough time to shave that yak, or paint that bike shed.
Yeah.
Include file name in watch errors as a Semver minor. Is that a Semver minor or a major? Changing error messages is a fraught business.
Which one is it again? I'm sorry, I missed that.
So it's issue number 2748. fs.watch error message includes file name. Yeah, watch.
It's not throwing a new error, right? It's just changing the message for it.
Changing the message, it's just that people do tend to rely on error messages. This one looks fairly innocuous, but we do have to be careful about error messages.
Yeah.
Might keep that tab open to look at that later.
Yeah.
Then there's the -c CLI argument check script syntax. And there's 3 more patch commits on master that need to be brought across. So all up, there's is it 6? That's seven commits that are staging for v4x. So not a whole lot of work to go in. I don't know if there's anything else hovering around that people are really hoping to get into LTS, but we could start the process today to get the release out. But the question is of timing. So 4.2, it would be 4.2.0. Do we want to punt until next Monday?
I'd rather not, but at the same time, can we get it done before Thursday?
So you'd rather not because we said first week of October?
Yeah, just because of what we said. I mean, I think it's fine. But in the future, we should try to keep it that first week.
Yeah. I mean, we can get this out by Thursday. It wouldn't be that hard.
When was our target to get it out by?
We said first week of October.
Michael Dawson will be back in a minute. His machine decided it was the perfect time to install patches and reboot. So. I'll be right back. If it's a small enough bit of work, if we can get it done by Thursday, then great. I think we should do it this week. If any of those prove to be any controversial at all, then let's push till Monday. But not let it slip past next Monday.
Okay, so let's do what we did with 4.0 and say aim for Thursday and backup day of Monday if we have any reason to slip. We have given people a lot of notice to get their commits into master if they really want them in LTS.
Right.
But you never know what will come up because
this
is open source.
And people in there that we want to make sure get in, other than to make sure that we're all closed on the security issues. So.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just note then the minutes. Okay. So the next one is the code name. Now we had a last-minute flurry of objections from the NPM folk about code names, which is kind of late for objections because we have been discussing this since we started this working group. Where's the issue?
I don't understand the objection.
I think the idea is that it's kind of questioning what the point of the code names is, as far as obfuscating information from the releases, and considering that it actually does take discussion to figure those out, and it's a lot of bike shedding for something that we may necessarily not want. Like, people remember version numbers a lot better than you might expect. At least that's my...
But we're not taking away.
Well, I mean, I don't remember all the
version numbers are the primary.
Sorry?
So the thing here was that we're not taking away version numbers. Version numbers will be the primary identifier.
Of course.
We will have overlapping LTS releases. And we also, one of the ideas was to give a sense of significance to the LTS releases, both for users and also for the core developers. And by giving something a code name, you inject it with a little bit more life than just a version number. So it's a soft versioning thing as well. Like, it's not Semver is good, and we're using Semver, and there's no objections here to Semver. But this is
so take the
injecting
4.0
with something a
release
little bit
line.
more.
Also, there's no way to tell that that just from 4.0 that the LTS would start at 4.2.0 unless we have something else either.
Yes, it's also a means of differentiating it from the rest of the 4.x releases.
That's an interesting point about differentiating from the line. I guess in my mind, when I think of Ubuntu releases, I still think of them as year month, because that's still a lot more useful to me than remembering whatever the animal they chose that particular release was. It's kind of an artifact of a lot of old distro stuff. As far as I can tell, it doesn't seem to add that much value to me to go like, oh, what animal, like which one was Ibex? Does anyone remember what Ibex was? I don't. Whereas keeping the branding to just be Node and the version when you talk about it, when you discuss it, and preventing yourselves from getting into this pattern of like, oh, I'm just going to mention the release name and not mention the number. You're going to lose that information about which one came first. You're going to lose that information about, the code names themselves don't encode anything. They're just random labels. Whereas if you just say Node version, you're being very clear about what you want and what you need. There's no ambiguity about which one you're talking about, right?
So a couple of points on that. Sorry.
I actually agree with what Kat said there.
So you run on Ubuntu releases with versioning, and whenever I'm Googling for an Ubuntu problem, I always use the version number. If you imagine a situation where Ubuntu didn't have names, my impression of that is that you dehumanize them slightly. There's something fun about the way they choose the names and the way they inject the names into them, and the fact that you can call it by name if you want to, and that people often do. So there's a humanizing process there rather than just a cold name. So that's part of the process, but also another point there. That's something you said. Again, we're not taking away the name, and there was a suggestion which I think we all came around to in that thread of having it, having them sortable. So we choose something starting with A for this time around, and then we go on like Ubuntu does, because you can do that with Ubuntu releases. You know that Ibex was before Lucid. Because they're alphabetized. But you also know, with Node, you will know that whatever we call the first one is an LTS because it's got a name, and version 5 won't have a name. And it's not, we're not encouraging people to use version 5 if they're got major deployments and they need the stability of LTS. So injecting with a name is also giving it that additional significance.
So this would be only for LTSs?
Yeah, the name is only for LTS.
And it's something to put into the property in process.release as well, rather than just true.
Yeah, I mean, I see that. I see what you're saying. I see as like a desire to generate culture around Node, right? To create Node's little culture, to have like a sense of belonging. I'm not sure how valuable that is outside the scope of a small subset of the Node community, as opposed to like the wider group. But I think it becomes kind of like, well, you need to know what the code name was in order to participate in discussions sometimes, which is also kind of concerning. But that's it's kind of a wider discussion about use of code names and similar, I guess, cultural artifacts in software projects. I would just rather use numbers all the time because they communicate exactly what I need to know, and I don't really need to know anything beyond like I find the idea of, the way Ubuntu marks releases based on dates is interesting, but we also have Semver, and that's its own kind of useful significance. So I don't know. I don't have much taste for code names still, but I hear. Yeah.
So the alternative, I think we kind of came up to, if we don't, it was mostly for for baking into a release, but we could also just use it generally. Would be to have it'd be like the LTS releases October 2015, and that's what we then bake into the binaries as like 2015-10 or something for this particular release. Would that work better? To know it's this year's release rather than something else, or than a code name, or.
So for all updates to the LTS, would they have that same tag? Right? Because, say for example, there's an update a month from now.
I would assume so, because that's like when this LTS period has been from.
Right.
You're
always going to need the full number to know exactly which release it is, plus whatever this other bit of information.
I mean, tagging it with like month year seems interesting to me. I like that suggestion a lot personally as a release name. Because I think people also like knowing how old something is, for LTS at least.
Yeah, it's also quite valid, because then people can go back and be like, well, this one's marked October 2015, but I'm like in, I don't know, December 2016. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense that way.
Yeah, the one that you actually got came out in December, but but I do find for the Ubuntu ones, it's always handy to know it's like 1404 or 1202, or whatever it was.
Yeah. It's always like 10 and 4.
Again, we're kind of backtracking really old discussions here, because this was discussed as well. Trying to find where it was, but there was an objection to using the dates in there because it's limited to the date that we started the LTS, rather than what the date of a particular release. Like, the thing about Ubuntu is that they don't have versions after LTS. Like, it's LTS date, and then that's it. Whereas we're going to have the start of the LTS plus also ongoing actual releases, versioned releases. Ubuntu does do updates throughout an LTS, but they're not, versioned like we're versioning with Semver. We have Semver to do that for us. 4.2 is LTS, and the patch version number, which could potentially get as high as what was it the other day? There's 30 months, and we potentially could, at an extreme, have an update, have a patch bump per week. So we could actually have a really high patch number by the end of this, but that's a secondary issue. I'm just trying to find the thread.
I mean, and we don't, in the LTS, we're not necessarily saying we support, the older 4.x releases. It's that the latest 4.x release is what's LTS supported, right? So if we somehow got the notion that you're the latest 4, you know that that's going to be LTS always, even though the first few weren't.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, saying that it's 4.x is enough to know it's LTS if we marked it as LTS.
Yeah. So, the codename thing for me has always been more of a marketing thing than an actual technical thing. I mean, if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. And at the very least, let's put some kind of flag in process.release that says, yes, this is LTS, and just go with node 4. and just call it that. So I don't see it as a big loss if we lose the fancy code name.
So basically, we could literally just do process dot, release dot LTS equals true.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just frustrated with the timing of this discussion because there's been no objections until like literally the week before LTS, and now we have the objections coming in, and we have people primed to get it in on the. We said we were going to put collaborators up for voting on a short list. This has been an assumption of LTS, and we're changing the assumption just before.
Mm.
Okay, regarding the code name though, like, do we really have like a discernible collection of stuff that people have really sort of decided on? Because it's like all very over the place, and no one's really.
Well, that's what this group was supposed to do. That's what this meeting was for. And if you go back to the README of the LTS thing, which we distributed very widely for feedback, and we tried very hard to get feedback on, there is an item in there that says we will be giving it a code name. This is something that we have committed to, and changing it the week before LTS it's not in the style of LTS. Doing things at the last minute. And I'm sorry. And I know you guys at NPM have probably had your little chat about this and mocked the idea of it, and that's where it's come from. I wish you had have done it a little bit before, the week before LTS. Sorry,
Okay,
I just find it's a little bit frustrating, just because.
So I have a new name suggestion then. We say process.version.lts equals yes, and then each time we do a new LTS, that S on the end gets a little bit longer.
I'm sorry about the timing. If I'd known about it before, I would have brought it up. We're not like going around mocking this. We're just, I made the objection, and that's pretty much where it happened. And I was not aware that this stuff was happening for such a long time before. So I'm sorry about that. I'm really sorry about the timing. I hear you in that sense. And it wasn't meant to be like a hostile thing at all. I'm sorry about that.
Do we have a good candidate for, like, a good subset of candidates?
The candidate that has been floating around from the beginning that has been the most sticky is using the periodic table, and if we go with an alphabetized version of that, that's the short list, choosing the A's.
Okay.
The only thing with that is we need to avoid anything that Chromium uses, because otherwise it'll get very, very confusing.
And there's
so
like two
hydrogen or chromium.
Chromium have used hydrogen and lithium and chromium, but that's it. It's not a cultural thing that they've adopted, and they've moved on from that anyway. They've got turbofan now.
So are we going with argon then? Or?
Works for me.
I don't actually know if that's like the first alphabetical element, but
no, there's 7 starting with A.
Well, that's 7 years right there.
No, as in we can choose one from A, and then for the next LTS we go to B. So
right.
They're alphabetized, so you know what's what.
Actinium is I believe is the first.
And then there's aluminium, and we should spell that correctly.
Argon seems nice.
That's a horrible idea. Let's not call it aluminium.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or arsenic.
I don't think I'd call it that.
Let's see. Americanium's probably on the off the list.
Activium sounds good to me. We're an active bunch.
Actinium. Okay. Like I said, I mean, it works for me. I mean, I definitely don't want to bike shit on this any longer. So let's just pick one and move on. Definitely understand, Kat, the objections and stuff, but I do I can't sympathize with Rod's frustration on it as well.
So, like,
so.
I'm not sure that this needs to be, like, people are going to be, for the version string at least, like, having to detect differences between it anyways. If we really wanted to, we could change it in the future if it turns out to be a problem. So I don't think this is locked in for forever, but it probably is good to move on for this release and just call it something.
Yep. So, out of these names, Actinium seems the one that makes the most sense? Or do we want to put a couple
of... Argon was the other.
Argon? Argon sounds cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna work. Like I said, I'm not...
I don't know what argon actually means, but I only know it's an element.
So we did suggest that we were going to put it to the collaborator group for a vote. Do we want to go with choose two of these and give people the option, actinium and argon? There's also antimony, but that doesn't sound like an element. And astatine.
That's just hard to pronounce. Acetane?
Yeah, you read it and go, what? Yeah.
Yeah, I would go with those two, argon and actinium, and just let there be a vote on those and go with whichever is chosen.
And as Jeremiah said, this isn't baked in stone. We have like a year until version 6 LTS, and if we decide that this has been a complete flop, we can remove it from then. But if it's been something that has generated a bit of it's either been helpful or has been helpful culturally, or just it's livening it a little bit from just being a cold version number. We can go with it, but if not, we can reassess when we're doing exactly the same discussion for prior to version 6.
I would note that actinium has 4 isotopes apparently. Yeah, definitely agree. So I think if we put just argon and actinium up for vote, move on. I think we're good.
Kat, how do you feel about that?
It sounds fine to me. I just thought I'd voice that stuff, but I am not like overly attached to any of the solutions.
I definitely appreciate you raising the concern, Kat, though. And I don't want you to feel like we're just kind of sweeping it aside. It's definitely valid.
No, I understand, and I think Rod's objection about timing is actually very, very valid, and that was not something that I was aware of, actually.
Okay.
Shall we move on to the next item?
Yes. Let's see.
Which is, so I've got so many tabs.
All right, so baking something into the LTS binary. So are we just going with the process.release.lts equals codename?
The other option to that would be to like put an object in there so it would have like name equals something and the LTS like actual date with it or something. But I think it's better to just put the name.
Yeah, it becomes a nice simple switch that if folks that care about, they can just.
Jeremiah, now I have a recollection, James, of you objecting to having the date in there. Do you remember that objection, or does that not fit?
I don't think it adds any value having a date in there. Not for the LTS anyway. Having the general release date, is just part of the release object itself. Makes sense, but I don't think we need anything additional for the LTS. It just needs to know that is an LTS, and that's it.
Yeah, I'd kind of agree.
So I think how about let's keep it simple for now for this one, and we can iterate on future LTSs because it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think what people need is just it's effectively just a Boolean, a truthy thing that they can test. Is this an LTS? Because there will be some people out there that will object to supporting their open source modules on anything but LTS. It's going to happen. So giving them the ability to do that objection if they really feel strongly about it.
Yep.
Sounds good to me.
Same. Sounds good.
Okay. Is there anything else in the issue, wherever that was, that we had to discuss?
I don't believe so. In terms of the timing, Rod, in terms of helping out with the actual release, I do have time available on Wednesday and Thursday. So if we to actually cut the release,
Okay.
help out with that.
So you haven't done a release yet, and I just wonder whether it might be good to get one under your belt. Maybe this would be a good one for you to shepherd through.
Okay.
Yes, please. We need more people doing releases. Thanks, the release team, which consists of me and Rod, it seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been on my to-do list to actually, get one done, but I figured might as well jump in. So, like I said, I will have time. Tomorrow's pretty tied up, but Wednesday and Thursday, I definitely have time available for helping push through.
So, just a question about releases. Did that entire thing with downloading the ICU get fixed? Because that was a huge pain.
There has been discussion on that, and it's not been fixed. When I was doing 4.1.2 yesterday, I ran into it with Windows, and I ended up, I don't know if you saw the issue today, Jeremiah, but I ended up having to clean out the workspace on those Windows machines and reboot them, and that seemed to fix it. So I don't know why that fixed it, but super frustrating, and it exists. But apparently there is a fix in Limbo somewhere to do retries.
Yeah.
So that's on our end, right? Is there a PR for that anywhere?
There's a PR, I believe, to do retries that Stephen has put in. There's also the option of pointing to an existing zip file or just dropping into place. That's on the build team side, effectively on my side.
But that option already exists, right?
To put it in, it does. My objection to doing that is that if we're pointing to a zip file, then we potentially lose the check that it's the right version zip file. I don't know if the configure script will check that this is the right zip file.
So if it'll just basically like a sashing against it, right?
Yeah, and say sorry, this is not what I'm expecting, because that's what I want it to fail if we have forgotten to update it on the build service, because I don't want to be providing an old ICU for when it's been updated in master or whatever it is we're releasing. So yeah, it's being fixed. I've vented my frustrations again last night on it, and apparently it's a work in progress.
Yeah, I know Stephen's been wanting to make some significant improvements to the whole process. It is going. I'll check with him again to see where things are at, and just kind of double check to see what additional we need to do on making more progress.
The other thing to note there is that what it points to is that we're not using ICU anywhere in test runs. So when we run general CI, ICU is not involved or doesn't need to be downloaded. So this is only failing in releases because that's the only place we use ICU, which is a bit of a concern because we're not testing anything. So having some tests in there would be good.
Running tests is overrated.
Is that the IBM mantra?
Of course.
Can I quote you on that?
Was that your head hitting the table, Michael?
I was going to say, don't quote me on that, but tests let me sleep at night. But I do hear that sometimes people say, if you ran less tests, you get more done.
Yeah, this is true.
If you ran less tests, you would have more to do, not necessarily get more done.
Well,
You'd be working more. You'd be working more, that's for sure.
Okay, so the last item that is probably worth covering is something I threw over to the website team, but we probably should be following it up, is how to promote this on the website, because we're going to have 2 versions soon on Node.js.org.
Yeah, I think there should be a separate heading that says, LTS releases and then the other releases.
Actually, this is a concern for like our release timeline. We should probably think about how fast things can get done on the website and like prioritize that for when we are going to release either like Thursday or Monday.
Well, I think it becomes mostly important when we have version 5, because even on...
Oh, true, sorry, yeah, I forgot we're not doing 5 at the same time. Yeah, we're fine right now.
But the same problem will come up when 5 comes out, because they're not as in sync with core as other working groups are, just because of the nature of what they do. So we'll have to push on that. Last I did see somebody, I don't know if it was you, Jeremiah, asking to get someone from Foundation Marketing involved.
Yeah, that was me. Hopefully we can get something like that involved, because I think discussions went back to that point at some point.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what do we want from them? Like I think they should be promoting it, but I think on our download site we should decide if we think it should be separated out, right?
Yeah, it's probably worth discussing though, because we have like this awkward relationship right now with them, where our existing evangelism team has sort of semi-dissolved because we can't do certain things like deal with the Twitter or anything. So we should probably just pull them in and try to fix all these.
Yeah, this has been a kind of a growing concern for me as well. I mean, we need to figure something out as far as the event.
Basically, what it comes down to is pulling someone from marketing who helps run our stuff into the evangelism working group and working with like people who aren't foundation people, and then getting some decisions there as to what we should maybe do for how we promote these things. And that would also be for the website.
Yep.
So the extreme case of this is when we have 2 LTSs and a stable release. So let's fast forward to October, November, December next year, and we have version 4, version 6, and also a version 7. So that's what we have to look forward to in regards to showing people what the options are and what they can download.
Right.
But that means that the previous LTS will actually be in maintenance though. So I don't think we should actually be promoting that people go download that, but we just say to like people
it'll
who
still
have it. Really?
It's active.
How long is it active? More 6 months?
Yeah, 6 months later.
Yeah. We don't have to promote. I'm not saying we have to have version 4 listed on the website when version 6 comes out, because it could just be something that happens in the background. Because people who are using version 4, people who are coming to the website need to make a choice. Do I use an LTS or do I use stable? And from our perspective, maybe we don't want people adopting version 4 when there's a version 6 available. So maybe just show one.
It's also going to get really confusing to people if we have more than one LTS release, I think.
Well, it's going to be confusing if they're listed all on the same page. On on that landing page, the initial options need to just be the current LTS and the current stable. If they want an old LTS that's still active, they can go to the downloads page and
Yeah.
download it along
I
with
agree.
it.
I agree with that.
Now, if you go to nodejs.org/download, you will see we have the download folder, and in there we've got the release folder, and that's got all of the releases. So when we moved this site over to the new server, I started putting symlinks in for the latest of 0.10 and 0.12, and we've also got the latest, in addition to the latest symlink. So latest points to the current stable release, and then 0.10, 0.12. Do we want to have anything special for LTS, or do we just want a latest v 4.x?
I think it makes sense to have an LTS directory here that lists just the LTS releases.
So an LTS directory.
My other thought.
They'll still have an overlap though, so we'll still need to have something. I think if we want to have a latest for it, I guess the option there would be to just use the code name for it, but or latest v 0.x code.
Yeah.
I'm almost wondering if we want to, like right now there's kind of two tiers. You have here's the current, then it's like here's all the previous releases. I was wondering if we want like here's the current, here's the latest of the previous streams, and then okay, if you don't want that for some reason, a separate page that says here's everything. Because really we don't want, even if somebody wants 12, we don't want them taking an old 12, we want them to take the latest 12, right?
Yeah, well, that's why I had that symlink in there. I don't know if people are actually using it. I haven't looked at the logs, but
yeah, I was just taking that one step further, saying, okay, if we actually put that on the second page you got to, then more likely they choose that than go to the third page and pick an older one that we don't want them to take.
I think.
But by the way, this is if you go to, so if you're looking at download/release, that is exactly the same as what you get to if you go to nodejs.org/dist, which is what we've had in the past. We've always had dist. I introduced this the download directory so that we could actually have more structure here, but also aliased it as dist so that people could still have their predictable stuff. So we do have the flexibility to use that parent directory /download to do more creative things with releases if we really wanted to.
I was going to say, I think someone mentioned it a minute ago, but it maybe be nice to have like a download/LTS where just like LTS releases are listed.
I like that idea too because you can point people there if they if that's all they care about. There would have to be lots of symlinks though. Make a note of this. So I'm going to suggest in my notes here that we have a download/LTS directory that just has LTS releases, and the latest v4.x should do for if people just care about the 4.x branch.
Right.
Seems fine.
Okay. Oh yeah, we might have some bike chatting to do on this later on when we get closer to actually deprecating a release line, which we haven't had to do yet, thankfully. And we're going to have to do it with IOJS, but we will eventually have to stop version 5 and also 10 and 12, 0.10, 0.12. So how do we go about de-emphasizing them in the downloads directory if we want to at all? But we can save that discussion for a lot later.
Well, they just end up at the bottom.
That is true. They will be sorted properly until we get to 10.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else anyone wants to discuss?
No, good for now. Good for now.
Okay.
I'm all good.
Do we want to have another meeting on Monday, next Monday, to debrief,
thinking-
or do you want 2 weeks?
I'm thinking that if we should probably shift to a 2-week. Adam, we're not getting enough people regularly week to week. Let's go to a 2-week, and if we end up getting more from there and need to go back to a week to week, let's do that.
Yeah, I think the questions we're going to have to start dealing with at that point are, what are the changes we want to pull in?
Right.
We really need, that's a discussion we have to have, because we've never had a proper discussion about what our threshold is for pulling in changes. So, and I think we're going to get to that pretty soon as well, because there's going to be lots of patch changes on master that, we don't have a signifier that says this is good for LTS, like we do for the stable releases, because Sinver patch, great, let's take it.
I guess it's like, well, yeah, maybe we just need to discuss that, but we should come to the agreement on, like, do we actually, unless somebody's pushing something to get into LTS, should we be pulling things?
I think so, because the easy case to consider here as a hypothetical is documentation changes. So actually, that's another issue that we haven't discussed, but I did see an issue on that on the website repo, was a link to LTS documentation, which we probably want, so that people can always refer to the latest LTS documentation. But so if somebody pushes a doc fix, that's trivial, but it's good to have in there for us. And it applies to version 4, so we should probably accept that.
Theoretically, couldn't we take everything that's patch?
Theoretically, but
until we go into maintenance.
Theoretically,
it's just that there's a lot of risk involved in even patch releases, because they, as we go further as well, they will be applying to master, and the master is going to diverge from v4.x pretty quickly. So there's going to have to be a lot more discerning of what really applies.
yeah.
But there's also, this discussion might be good when we have some candidates to look at. So if we wait 2 weeks, like let's hold off on another v4x release unless something critical comes up, and then we'll have a candidate list of commits to look at, and then as a group we can go down and start having a discussion about, is there anything that doesn't qualify, and if not, then why? And that would help us to clarify the threshold discussion.
Agreed. Yeah, I don't want to try to solve problems we don't have yet. I think we all pretty much already agree. Nothing that involves introducing a new feature. So I mean, we already have it's a list of one item we know we're not going to take, but the rest of it we can kind of fill in as we go.
Which item we know we aren't going to take?
No new features.
Right.
Nothing that would be a Semver minor.
What I think particularly is I think Rod was saying, is as we get near to the end, it's going to get harder and harder to take things, right? So
yeah,
it's more like
look at 0.12 now. That's 0.12 is not that far detached from where we are.
Yeah.
I think that's
sort of a natural thing that's going to happen, and that our tolerance for stuff is going to have to increase over time, but probably can be a lot less at the beginning. It's just going to be sort of natural thing curve that'll end up happening. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
Now, did Ben didn't get on this call? He did want to discuss V8 maintenance. Do we want to punt that discussion until he's around?
Probably. I think our
the-
last understanding was that like we basically need someone dedicated for that.
I mean, I guess from my perspective, it's... Sorry, go ahead.
So the status of that was there was a suggestion to get the foundation to hire somebody to do this because it would be nearly impossible to find somebody that actually wants to take it on as a casual thing, just as an open source contribution thing. I do have some serious reservations about the foundation hiring technical staff to do contributions, just in terms of what it does for the culture of both the collaborators group and the TSC group. If there's somebody that is hired by the foundation, I think that's something we shouldn't discount, and we need to think through carefully before we go ahead and start asking the foundation to hire somebody. It's not a simple matter. That's what I'd like to discuss around that. And I know Ben really wants the foundation to hire someone, but I'd really love to see if we could find a different way.
The only problem is like who else is going to hire someone to just work on the V8 side of things for like a long term.
Well,
we need someone who's dedicated to this for like a good amount of time, because it's going to take a while to just get someone up to speed with all the crap that's there.
Right, but this could take some creative thinking. It's not just one option here.
Yeah, I guess the other option is we could go back to the foundation members and say, can you guys hire somebody and then commit them to this, right? It doesn't have to be the foundation hiring.
Yeah.
Or a collaboration. There's certain companies in the foundation, and even outside the foundation, that are going to care about LTS, and the two obvious ones are IBM and NodeSource. So perhaps there's something that we can come up with collectively. I invite you to think through what cultural change would come by having somebody who is committing code to core, who is a foundation staff member, who is paid to do this full time by the foundation. And then let's use that as a hypothetical for discussion about whether that might introduce some cultural concerns.
Yeah, where do you want to have that conversation? I can see your point that definitely would be something new, right? So it's important to think about it.
Yeah, and also will it have an impact on the way people approach contributing? There's always been the concern of I don't have to do that because I know that there's somebody who's paid to do that full time, so therefore I'll just leave it to them. We have a little bit of that now because we have a division between certain collaborators that work on this as their job and others don't, but still it's if there's no one official that this is a foundation person that does it except for Michael, and he doesn't commit to core anymore. So yeah, I just this is a cultural thing that I think is worth mulling over, and then we can come back to this when we get Ben on a call, because it's not a problem right now, except for 0.10 and 0.12. It's just going to become a problem over time when the code bases diverge enough. Like in 6 months, say, when V8 has really moved on because of some next major pivot they do. We can no longer assess things just by reading commit logs. Anyway, let's postpone this discussion until we've got more.
The other thing that might drive it a little bit too is, I'm talking to the V8 team about getting us connected into the security reporting. If we actually start to get a stream of those, we may need more horsepower to keep up.
Yeah, who knows how many of those there actually are.
I asked that, and they told me there's like one a week. Although not necessarily serious ones, but one that they actually have on their list. And
yeah, and we're going to have to make the decision each time. Does this apply to Node? Does it apply to LTS, etc.?
Exactly. So
the latest one. Sorry.
Yeah.
The latest one they fixed on 4.5 we pulled in to. It's actually in 4.1.2 now, but that security bug was for it's like for cross-frame sniffing or something, like something that doesn't apply to Node. And but I couldn't when I was doing the release notes. I thought about mentioning that this addresses this CVE for Chrome, but I did not have enough context to know whether there's a potential vector for Node to be involved, and so having people that were more dedicated to looking at those things would be great. Anyway, how about we
Do you
end?
have any other model? Like, I mean, the other model was, asking the foundation members to hire people. Do you have any other thoughts along those lines? Just
So another thought is that we could simply try and generate interest amongst the community and find those quirky people that really enjoy this kind of deep technical work and want to become the person or a person that is that does this stuff, because there are people out there that really love getting deeply involved in some of this work, and perhaps we could attract one to core.
you probably need several though if it's not their day job, right?
And that's been Ben's assertion. I'm not sure. Like he's better qualified than me to make that assertion, because I don't watch V8 on day-to-day.
Based on what I've seen, like just around project stuff and like what level of sort of thing those sort of patches usually need, I think it would need to be someone who at least can spend like some of their day job helping out.
And it's going to change over the life of LTS as well. You think about 0.10 and 0.12 now. It would be nearly impossible to take something from current V8 and say this applies in some way to old V8. You're actually dealing with an entirely different project at that point. So you're dealing with new issues that are completely independent of the V8 team. So you're finding new issues or addressing existing issues by looking at Node stuff. So initially, let's say over the first 3 or 4 months, maybe even 6 months or more, you would be doing cross-referencing from upstream and seeing if things apply downstream. But beyond that, it becomes a separate project, because the V8, the way they do they change internals so dramatically, it becomes a different beast, and we're left handling something that we're the only ones that care about it. So it's a different kind of job over the period of an LTS. Anyway, let's prime that discussion for next week, and we'll try and make sure Ben can join. Not next week, in 2 weeks. Try and make sure Ben can join, and we'll work through a bit more. Okay. Anything else before we finish? No? Okay. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks.
Thank
Take care all.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.